Now, for our daily cancellation today, we're going to look at a story that actually makes me angry, if you can believe it. I know it doesn't seem like me to be angry about something, but I am, for a change of pace. We're going to be canceling the cancel mob that came for a guy named John Folk. Last name spelled F-O-C-K-E. I'm going to pronounce it Folk because that's the safest way to go. I'm not actually sure if that's the real pronunciation. Now, anyone inclined to believe the absurd spin that, as many left-leaning media outlets have claimed, cancel culture is nothing but a myth concocted by bitter conservatives should consider the story of the unfortunate John Folk. The announcer for the Charlotte Hornets has seen his life torn to shreds in the last few days. He's indefinitely suspended from his job. He's been condemned and ridiculed all over social media. Major publications and national media personalities are accusing him of bigotry and worse. All because his thumbs landed on the wrong letter while composing a tweet. This was during a game between the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz. Actually, I'm just going to call him John. We'll just go with John, safest of all. John sent out a tweet about the action on the court, and the tweet said, "Shot making in the Jazz Nuggets game is awesome. Murray and Mitchell going back and forth. What a game." That was the tweet. Only problem was the typo on the word Nuggets, which, through two errant twitches of the finger, came out as the N-word. Now, John deleted the tweet, fervently apologized for it. It was too late. His job was gone within hours. There was near unanimous agreement on social media that either he wrote the N-word on purpose or his phone auto-corrected to that word because he types it so often in text messages and emails that it programmed itself. Headlines in publications like USA Today trumpeted the news. A guy named John Folk tweeted a racial slur, they said. ESPN personality Mark Jones suggested that his phone corrected itself to the N-word because Folk had, quote, written it a ton of times and trained it that way. And a lengthy Yahoo News editorial implied that John had intentionally written it, saying that the claim of a typo, quote, strains credulity, and that the tweet signals that, quote, he might have a problem with black people. So the scalp has been claimed. A life left in smoldering ruins, and the vengeful mob once again dances in celebration around the ashes, all because of a typo. Speaking of straining credulity, it is the absolute height of absurdity to claim that this man would intentionally tweet the N-word in some sort of maniacal act of professional suicide. The typo explanation, especially considering that the R and T and U and I keys are right next to each other on your phone's keypad, is significantly more plausible than the self-immolation theory that you're getting from the media. The idea that the phone had programmed itself with a racial slur as an autocorrect is similarly ridiculous. As far as I'm aware, smartphones will not autocorrect to profanity unless you go into your settings and specifically install those words as options. I sincerely doubt that John, an NBA announcer who live tweets NBA games, would have done that. Is it really so impossible to believe that this was nothing but an innocent mistake made by a man who was merely trying to send an excited tweet about a basketball game that he was watching? In the whole history of people typing the word nuggets into their smartphone, is it impossible to believe that eventually, by a roll of the dice, someone somewhere is going to make that mistake? No, it's not. Not for any honest or rational person anyway. So why the performative outrage? Why the gleeful attempt to destroy the life of some obscure regional NBA broadcaster nobody's ever heard of? Well, because this is cancel culture. It comes in several different forms, but here it is at its most pernicious and loathsome. Sure, sometimes the mob tries to cancel high-profile people like J.K. Rowling when they voice a really objectionable opinion like biological sex exists or some other blasphemy, but it's especially toxic when it comes for the obscure and the powerless and devours them for the sheer pleasure of the exercise. Cancel culture is, by definition, petty, cruel, vindictive, and arbitrary. It is also entirely false in its motives and its claims. The cancel culture mob is never genuinely angry, never seeking real justice. Of course, I call it arbitrary, but it's only arbitrary in the sense that the penalty bears no relation to the alleged infraction. The victims selected are not arbitrary. John, as a random white guy who committed an accidental racial flub, is the perfect target. We know, of course, that if he was non-white and had actually intentionally tweeted slurs about white people and admitted that it was intentional, there would be no mob coming for him at all, and he would still have his job. So the victim selection here is not completely arbitrary, but it is, again, petty, cruel, vindictive, and also hypocritical, of course. It's funny that the people who called for this dude to be fired are largely the same ones who'd insist that rioters and looters and other violent criminals should be given grace and patience, and their actions ought to be understood in context. Burn a house down, loot a store, assault a random pedestrian, break into someone's house like we just heard. That's deserving of our understanding. In that case, we should consider the overall context of the actions. But accidentally hit the wrong keys with your thumb, death penalty. You're finished. That's how it goes. Because it's all a game to these people. In fact, I found it quite appropriate that the first tweet I read when I typed John Folk's name into the Twitter search bar yesterday, this was the first tweet. It said, "The John Folk story is hilarious. Fire that man." Yes, how hilarious. Fire him. Wreck his life. There's no reason to do it. He doesn't deserve it. But hey, it's kind of funny if you're a sociopath. And, what else is there to do on a Monday? You might as well. So for that reason, this particular mob is yet again canceled. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.